There's a woman in the cage.
Salut tout le monde, bon dimanche, bienvenue à cette quatrième épisode déjà d'une tasse d'été avec Max Allon. Tellement content de vous retrouver encore en ce dimanche. Merci à tout le monde pour les beaux commentaires sur le show. On a vraiment du fun à faire ça. Moi, c'est pas trop une corvée de venir m'asseoir sur la terrasse d'un terrain de golf, de vous jaser de golf pendant une heure avec du monde tellement tripant. Merci à nos professionnels d'hier, Jérôme Blais, Steve Foisy et Kevin B. Tremblay, qui nous ont donné vraiment de bons conseils et qui ont parlé de golf avec une façon assez inspirante, je dirais. Je sais que vous avez apprécié l'émission d'hier, alors merci pour ça. Si vous voulez la réécouter, on est disponible en version podcast également sur Spotify. Si jamais vous voulez écouter ça là, en marchant, en courant, en faisant du vélo, peu importe, cette version-là est très cool. Alors, merci pour ça. Même chose qu'hier, je vous demanderais de partager le plus possible la vidéo de ce matin. Là. Si vous voyez la petite flèche partagée, hier, ça a super bien marché. Merci à peu près à la cinquantaine de personnes qui ont partagé. On a déjà plus de 8500 écoutes du show d'hier à peu près. Donc, c'est vraiment très bon. Et ça, c'est grâce à vous autres. Alors, en gang, tout le monde, ce matin, vous pouvez partager. Anne Rogerson qui est encore là. Une fidèle. Salut Anne, merci d'être là. Salut mon chum, Jean-Claude Gélina, régent de Terrebonne, qui ne travaille pas en cochon, qui est content de savoir que Mike Weir va être sur le show ce matin. Marc-André Latulippe, Max qui nous regarde. Il y a Gaétan Grimard qui est là. Salut, bon show. Merci Gaétan d'être là. Absolument. Aujourd'hui, mes invités, Lisa Longball, Mike Weir et Brigitte Thibault, je les présente dans les prochaines secondes. Première des choses, la question du jour. Question du jour aujourd'hui, je vous demande. Là, c'est le temps d'être chauvin. Là, c'est le temps de plugger les endroits que vous aimez. Je vous demande votre trou de golf préféré au Québec ou le plus beau trou de golf au Québec selon vous. Ça peut être le club où vous êtes membre, ça peut être un club que vous avez déjà visité si vous n'êtes pas membre nulle part puis que vous avez pris une photo puis que c'est extraordinaire puis il y en a plein. Vous le savez, on a tellement de bons, d'excellents terrains de golf, de beaux terrains de golf avec des trous pittoresques. Et je vous demande en commentaire, la question du jour, j'ai hâte de mettre ça à l'écran, votre trou de golf favori au Québec, c'est lequel? Je vais vous donner ma réponse. Et je vais la mettre en photo. Je l'ai sorti de mon catalogue photo de l'été passé. Et c'est celui-là ici. C'est le trou numéro 1 du 9, le Saint-Laurent, dans Charlevoix, au Manoir Richelieu. C'est un terrain exceptionnel. Je suis allé de JP Moffett là-bas et toute son équipe de frapper sur une normale 5 avec le Saint-Laurent en arrière. Ça fait juste encore relativiser encore plus à quel point c'est beau le Québec et à quel point on a des terrains qui sont exceptionnels. Alors, allez-y en commentaire ce matin. Je veux savoir votre trou au Québec, c'est lequel? Claude Simard dit Saint-Jean-de-Mata, le 11e trou. De mémoire, j'ai déjà joué Saint-Jean-de-Mata, mais le 11e, ça me dit quelque chose. Le 18e au Rivermead de Michael Pichura. Merci d'être là, Michael. Michel Pratt, on partage le même, le numéro 1 du Saint-Laurent au Manoir Richelieu. Absolument, il y en a plein. Denis Carrier qui dit le 10 à Dufferin Heights, que tu as sûrement joué souvent. Oui, le 10 à Dufferin Heights, c'est tout un trou de golf. Tu pars dans les airs. C'est vraiment très beau. Steve Foisy dit le numéro 17 au Memphrey Magog. C'est parce qu'il y a à peu près 6 personnes sur la planète qui ont joué au Memphrey Magog, dont Steve Foisy, qui est un des plus beaux terrains de golf au monde, le Memphrey Magog, mais qui est difficilement accessible. Anne Rogerson qui dit le 15e au Golf Atlantide, le par 3, Lille, il y en a plein des super beaux. au versant où je me trouve, le 15e, le par 5 que tu décolles en haut. Le 14, oui, le 14e, c'est vrai que tu décolles en haut avec Montréal en arrière. Tu vois le mode Stade olympique, c'est vraiment beau, il y en a plein. Alors, merci de répondre. Juste avant de passer à ma première invitée, je veux saluer les propriétaires de terrains de golf et les professionnels de golf qui se préparent à ouvrir leur boutique. Vous le savez, on a eu l'aval du gouvernement pour pouvoir, dans certaines régions du Québec, ouvrir les boutiques de golf dès demain lundi, le 4 mai, pour ce qui est de la communauté métropolitaine de Montréal. Ça va aller plus tard, ça va aller au 11. Mais les boutiques vont ouvrir bientôt. Puis là, j'ai vu beaucoup de photos passer de professionnels, de DG, de propriétaires de clubs qui préparent leur boutique. Et si vous voulez leur donner un bon coup de main, vous avez besoin de souliers cette année, vous avez besoin de bâtons, vous avez besoin de linge, vous voulez changer votre garde-robe, ça vous prend des nouveaux polos parce que vous ne rentrez plus dans les derniers, parce que vous avez perdu du poids, vous avez couru pas mal. C'est un peu mon cas. Allez encourager les boutiques de vos clubs de golf respectifs. Ça va leur donner un sacré coup de main. Et ils sont en train de se préparer. Et la boutique est super bien organisée partout au Québec. Ça va à la clientèle exceptionnelle. Alors, allez-y, allez faire un tour dans nos différentes boutiques. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est le temps de mettre notre invité de ce matin à l'écran. So I'll switch to English right now to introduce her properly. Live from Calgary, Alberta. So glad to have her on the show. She's an 8-time Canadian champion of long drive, golf professional, golf entertainer, golf speaker, and she's spreading the love and the fun about golf all over North America and all over the world. My guest this morning, my first guest, Lisa Longball. How are you, Lisa?
I'm wonderful. Bonjour. So thrilled to be here.
It's so fun. How's your French?
Well, I've taken French from grade 3 to grade 12. I can conjugate verbs like nobody's business, but my conversational...
I wanted to have you on this morning because the thing about this show is we want to be positive about golf because some of us here in Quebec are still waiting to go out and play, and we wanted to bring people on the screen that have a positive speech about golf, and you do. And I was looking at everything you do and everything you throw on Instagram, on Facebook, you are probably one of the most positive golf teacher I ever saw, and that's so great about you.
Thank you. You know, I'm truly passionate about the game. And it's funny, I came to golf by accident, and now this is my passion. It's what I love to do. You know, when I get to hear, I do a lot of clinics and schools, and when I hear students say to me how much, you know, they love the game, or if I can teach them something and they help them drop their strokes by 6 strokes or their game by 6 strokes, and they're so happy. So this is my joy. My joy is the game of golf. And so I'm thrilled that this show is all about how do we be positive about golf, and let's talk about, you know, having fun.
When you say that you got in golf by accident, how did that happen?
Well, it's funny. So my dad dragged me out to the local junior night when I was in grade 8. I was his last hope as a golfer. My mom didn't play, my sister didn't play, so he dragged me out, and there were 60 boys and me. And the coach kind of took one look at me and he said, Lisa, why don't you go hit your 6-iron at the end of the range? So I went to the range at the end of the range, hit my 6-iron by myself, and he pretty much worked with the boys the rest of the night. So I quit, and there just weren't a lot of strong junior girls golf programs back then. Yeah. Now, holy cow, amazing, right? Yeah. But back then there weren't. So I quit, maybe played 9 holes a year with my dad. And it wasn't until my 20s when my boyfriend at the time, now husband, was just graduating from university in engineering. And guess what? He was invited to corporate and charity golf tournaments, which is such a great key business networking skill in Canada. For sure. Yeah, so he didn't golf a lick. He was a farm kid, so he dragged me out to the local muni to learn so he could get out to these tournaments and not embarrass himself. And I started to fall in love with it. Actually, the LPGA came to Calgary, and it only comes once every 10 years, maybe. It was called the Du Maurier Classic at the time, back when cigarette companies could sponsor.
They could sponsor things, yeah.
And yeah, so I volunteered. I was a 30-plus handicap. I volunteered, and watching the best female golfers in the world, I was so inspired that I decided I wanted to compete in golf. And luckily, there's competitions for people who can't break 100. So that's kind of how it all got started.
It's crazy how you can get from being a recreational golfer that struggled a little bit to go into golf to 8-time Canadian champion of long drive and hitting longer than probably most of the boys. And what was the time frame between you starting golf seriously and you competing?
So 1999, I was volunteering, and then that was my inspiration. So 2000 was my very first golf competition ever. Luckily, as I said, they have competitions for people who can't break 100. I think it was the Alberta mid-handicap at the time. And I came near the end of the pack, but I was hitting it 80 to 100 yards past my female playing partners. Well, within a year, I got down to just under a 12, which just snuck me into the Alberta amateur, like for the top girls with NCAA girls and all that. And I was hitting it 50, 60 yards by many of those girls. And then I saw an advertisement for a long drive competition and entered and won with a 313-yard drive with a set of clubs from Costco. So, and then so then I ended up winning my first national title at Glen Abbey in 2001. And I qualified for the World Championships that year and came top 10 in the world all in 1 year. That was 2001. And that was it. I was in hook, line, and sinker.
And long drive for everybody is so impressive because every amateur golfer looks at the long drive championship and long drive competition, and we're like, wow, they're hitting the ball so far. And we tend to forget that you guys are still pro golfers and very good golfer, and you can teach golf. And I was going through your Facebook, through your Instagram. You teach golf to so many people all over North America. You travel to Arizona for golf camps, but you make a commitment to teach golf to ladies, and it's so important that we get ladies out on the field because so many times I've been playing golf for about 20 years now, and I felt at some places at sometimes that they didn't felt welcome, and in what you do, it's impressive, the fun that you bring to the game.
Well, that's it, Max. You nailed it. It's got to be fun. And I do. I'm a golf entertainer at a lot of corporate and charity golf tournaments all across North America. And I go to all these tournaments, maybe 30, 40 a year. And what I normally see, 75 to 80% of the attendees at these tournaments are men. And where are the women? The women are back in the office doing the work while the guys are smartly doing the networking. So that's what I realized. So many women are intimidated. Even women who play golf, they've said, oh, I'm not good enough to play in those corporate or charity tournaments. And I'm like, yes, you are. Come out. It's about having fun, especially corporate and charity tournaments. A scramble tournament, it's usually a foursome. You take a best ball format. So it's a lot of fun, right? So it's a wonderful amount of fun, and you got to get out there. And I'm hearing a noise. I think is that at my house?
No, I think it's probably here somewhere, but it's all right.
Okay, as long as,
and we're outside. There's birds. There's people working on the course.
As long as everyone's safe, that's perfect. But and so I wanted women to have the confidence to say, yes, come out to these corporate and charity tournaments. It's about having fun. It's not about, you don't have to be breaking 100 to come and do that. And golf is fun, and it's camaraderie. It's about the camaraderie and getting out there and the laughs and the missed shots and the great shots, and that's what it's about. So that's why I started my school, so that I could give women that confidence to get out there. But also, golf is this lifelong sport that you can play hopefully into your 80s and 90s, your golden years. And you can play with a professional golfer, can play with a brand new golfer, and you can still challenge your game. So that's what's so wonderful about this sport.
And right now I'm on the patio at Le Versant, my old club, and Nadia, the owner here, went to your clinic in Arizona. So you travel a lot to give your clinic, and everybody comes back from there with such a cool memory about it. So it has to be an experience. You're not only teaching, you're providing an experience to learn golf in so many great golf clubs, so many great golf environments. So it's a perfect setup for girls to walk in and say, hey, you know what? I want to learn. I want to play that game.
And that's why I started 3-day golf schools, because again, women, I want to cover all aspects of the game. And as you said, make it an experience, make it that when they leave, they want to go home and play 50 rounds that year, like have fun and get out there and play. And so, so we cover everything. We start, chipping, putting, sand, full swing. We do the whole 9 yards. We do on-course playing lessons. Max, there may be wine. Not going to lie to you. There may be wine, some swing lube. But it's, you know what, it's such fun, and I'm thrilled that women come from all over North America for these 3-day schools, and it's fun, and we leave with literally new lifelong friends. And Nadia, like when I saw Nadia, her improvement that she made from day one to the last day, and then her commitment to want to practice, and the joy that she had to say, oh my gosh, Lisa, you should have seen how far I hit it, and when they have that aha moment, to me, there's nothing better in golf.
When was your aha moment in golf? When did you do like, all right, this is going to be my life and what I'm going to do in my life?
Yes, well, a lot of people don't know this. So I was an elementary school teacher, and so I'm passionate about teaching. I believe teaching is a calling, a vocation,
Yeah.
and so I just loved it. And then when I won, so I ended up coming, so I won my first, as I said, Canadian championships, and was competing at World Championships. I started competing on a long drive tour, and then I believe it was 2004. I won my first long drive tour event in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places, if you can believe it. And I beat the reigning world champion and 2 former world champions. And then I ended up winning the tour championships that year down in, that was in just outside of Washington, D.C., in Williamsburg, Virginia. And so that was it when I was like, you know what, this is something I want to devote my time to. And the hard part was that here I was passionate about golf and long drive, but also my students. And my husband said to me, Lisa, you have a limited chance to be the best in the world in something. Do it. So that's when I nervously signed my resignation letter and to pursue trying to become the world long drive champion. So I my best place at the world championships, I came second place. I lost by 3 yards to the 5-time world champion Sandra Karlberg from Sweden, but I'm still chasing it. Like this year, hopefully. So our tour was just, so I compete on the Golf Channel's World Long Drive Tour, and we were supposed to have just been in Mesquite, Nevada a week ago, and South Carolina this month. But our tour has been canceled because of COVID. But the World Long Drive Championships is still on the plate, and it's actually moved from Thackerville, Oklahoma to Chicago to Cog Hill. So it will be the first time.
Cog Hill is beautiful.
It's going to be unbelievable. And so that's in September. So fingers crossed it's a go. But that will be my 20th World Long Drive Championship. So
wow.
It's like to compete against the best in the world, and I'm a mom, so I want to show moms out there too. You know what? Just because you're a mom, you can be competitive. And when I came second in the world, it was after I became a mom. So I want women to know, get out there, have fun, and Max. We talk about golf being such a fun, wonderful sport. With my son, we've been playing with my son since he was little. We started with plastic clubs and then came out to the course. But now he's 13. We actually, all 3 of us just teed it up at Kapalua after the new design. So we were there in December, and to the 3 of us, devices are put away. There's no phones, there's no tablets. And it's the 3 of us laughing, having fun, and the memories. And now to watch him play with his hockey buddies, he goes and plays with his friends. It's just this gift.
When you get in golf, it kind of transmits to your son and everybody in your family. And I come from a golf family, and my dad plays golf, my uncles plays golf. We were talking about it's funny because so many people that I know, my friends, and I know they had children, they had kids, and they're all waiting so they be old enough to get the clubs and go to the I just had a son, he's 3 months old. I was looking at a replay from the Wells Fargo this morning on TV with him, and I was just thinking, can you just grow up a little bit fast so we could go play out there? And my greatest moments, of course, have been with my dad, with my uncle, and we spare all of my memories, greatest photos, pictures, souvenirs are all from golf trips, golf moments. And I always tell that story, but I traveled to Arizona with my dad a couple of years ago. And we were at TPC Scottsdale, and it was in November. So just right before the tournament in February, they started to build up the stands. So we entered by the gate that usually the pros take, and nobody's pro. I'm not a pro. My dad's not a pro. We just walk in there. We hit pretty solid shots on the par 3. He made a birdie, I made a par. We just grabbed it ourselves, and we started to cry because it was such a strong moment for us because we sat on. Yeah, I know. And golf brings that, and none of the other sports that I play can do this, I think.
No, I agree with you. I agree. My dad, I took my dad to St. Andrews, and we walking across the Swilken Bridge with your dad. Like, my mom took a picture while we were going down the 18th fairway that I framed. I have it because it's, as you said, it's that moment. It overwhelms you. It overwhelms you. Yeah.
I'm curious. We're talking about the long drive tour. If you play in Chicago or you play in Mesquite, is it the same distance that you can hit? Because I've played in Mesquite, and the ball travels a lot in Mesquite.
Oh, yes. So depending on elevation, like our longest drives, the women hit it over 400 yards. Women hit it over 400 yards in Denver because Mile High, right? Mile High. There's many factors. So it depends. I agree. So our higher elevation cities definitely we get bigger yardage. And of course, tailwind if there's any of that. And then also sometimes with Mesquite or Arizona, we've competed in, we'll have that hard pan. And so it can sometimes, depending on the condition of the grid, it can really kick and run. And whereas if it's a softer grid, as you said, Chicago, you've got humidity, you've got sea level. These are all factors as to how far the ball is going to go.
I just received a question on Instagram. It's a great one. It's sent by John. He wants to know, can you learn to long drive? Can you teach somebody to long drive? Well, you got to have it in you.
That's an excellent question. Yes, I believe you can teach someone to long drive. However, you do have to have an already innate ability to really smash it. Meaning that for me, I was a former gymnast. And so I always explosive. I went it was in trampoline and tumbling before trampoline was an Olympic sport. So I always had that explosive power and speed. And so that really naturally transitioned well into long drive. And you can teach it because really long drive is about creating club head speed and ball speed. Like it's trying to swing as fast as humanly possible, right? And so I think you can train it, but you do have to have, I believe, you have to be athletic. Like there has to be an athletic ability in you to generate speed and have that explosive power. But if you do, I believe it can be trained. Like you look at Jamie Sidlowski, a two-time world champion, 5'10", $165, hits at 417. Right. Like, and you talk about being a good player. He now plays on the tour, like on the Canadian tour and trying to make his way onto the PGA tour. So long driver, trying to make it, and with a phenomenal game.
And some of the long drivers are not that muscular or that tall. One of my friends plays on the women's long, Alex Phillips from Vegas.
Alex, yes, she's great. Yes.
Yeah, she's great, but she's not, she's pretty fit, but she's not that big and she drives. No. We were hitting balls once, one close to each other on the range in Vegas. And I was like, all right, it's like 45 yards, 55 yards longer than me. I was like, how do you do that? And she's so small. It's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. And so really it's, as you said, it's not as big. You don't have to be this massive person with huge muscles. Again, it's flexibility. The biggest key I could tell any of your viewers, the ability to create a huge turn and then translate that into speed. So the more flexible you are, that's actually going to lead to a ton of club head speed.
We have a question in French, but I'm going to translate. Ghislain wants to know, what's the average of your drives? I know that your world record is 350 and 2 inches or something.
My longest drive is 350 yards, 2 feet, 2 inches. I was the first woman to hit it over 3.5 NFL football fields in competition. That was in Albuquerque, New Mexico at a tour event. But yeah, I would say, again, it depends on where we're competing. So I would say like averaging somewhere between we'll call it, 295, 310. But at Worlds, I was the two Worlds, 330 yards, 333. So it just depends on conditions. But like if I'm not hitting 3 bills, I'm disappointed.
And everybody that I talked to that knew that you were on the show this morning, everybody told me you gotta ask her about that time she played Pebble Beach behind Arnold Palmer. And we spoke over the phone this week. I didn't want you to tell me the story of that because I wanted to hear it this morning like everybody. So what's that story that everybody wants us to hear?
So what it is, this is a crazy story. So my husband has been so supportive of me. How do you thank someone like that, right? So I decided his bucket list course was Pebble Beach. So it took me 13 months to squirrel away slowly enough money to take him to Pebble Beach. And I shouldn't have done it because now my husband knows how much I can squirrel if I actually put my mind to it, right? and so I finally saved up my pennies and we went to Pebble Beach and we were like 2 kids in a candy store when we walked into that pro shop and we said, hello, we have a 12:30 tea time. And they said, Mr. and Mrs. Blueswick. And we said, yes. They said, great, you're playing with the Smith twosome. We said, oh, thank you. And you're playing behind Mr. Smith, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Palmer. We're like, oh, thanks for letting us know. We walk out to the first tee, and who's standing at the first tee at Pebble Beach but Arnold Palmer? And my husband's like, wow, like that is so cool. I'm like, well, we're going to go say hi. And he's like, no, Lisa, we're not going to go say hi to Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, you don't want to bother him. Like.
So I'm like, hi, Mr. Palmer. My name's Lisa. I'm from Canada. And he was so wonderful. No wonder there was Arnie's Army. No wonder he was the king. He was so gracious. He chatted with us. It was actually my husband's birthday. He wished my husband a happy birthday. And then we have a picture of the 3 of us standing on the first by the first tee at Pebble Beach together, which hangs, of course, in my living room. And so anyway, we got to watch Arnold Palmer tee off on the first hole at this U.S. Open venue. And he takes out his driver and he absolutely splits the fairway. And we're all like this. And remember, it's not U.S. Open. It's
like, we're clapping.
It's like a Wednesday afternoon. And he waves to us kind of, And so off he goes. Well, anyway, then I get introduced to our playing partners, the Smith twosome. So the Smith twosome comes over, and the second they're told that they're playing with me, they look wildly disappointed. It's like, great, I'm playing my bucket list course, and I got paired with a chick. And you can just tell.
Wait, it was two guys. That pairing was okay.
Right, two guys, super disappointed. So the one guy reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a tee and he tosses the tee to see who's going to tee off first. And it lands on me and he kind of rolls his eyes. So I go into my bag and I pull out my club and I head back to the blue tees. So one up from the tips. And he does a double take, but he doesn't say anything. So then the starter comes over. He's a little long in the tooth. He's like 110. And he comes up to me. He's like, excuse me, little missy, the ladies' tees are up there. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I said, but my handicap would indicate I should play from the blues. No. All ladies need to play from the ladies' tees. And I'm like, I didn't just pay $500 US at a 67-cent Canadian dollar to play from 5,200 yards. Like, that's my inside voice.
I know.
Right? So I'm like, no, I'm good. Thank you so much. So he let it go. Now, the first hole at Pebble Beach is a dogleg right. So I didn't want to blow it through the corner. So I pulled out my fairway wood. So Mr. Palmer's group is standing in the fairway. So I'm waiting for the corner to clear. And the starter says to me, play away. And I said, well, actually, they're still in my range. He looks at me. He looks at my fairway wood. He knows Mr. Palmer hit driver. And he's like, I don't think so. And then he's got steam coming out of his ears. We take the pace of play very seriously here at Pebble Beach. After 2 warnings, you can be removed from the course. Well, after all this hullabaloo, finally the corner is clear, and now I'm standing over my ball. But for any of your long hitters out there that are watching, you wait, because you don't want the group ahead of you. So what happens, right?
That's what I do.
Like you, Max. Like you. Now there's another group that comes up, right? So I'm standing over my ball, and my only swing thought is, please don't cold top it off the tee. Please don't cold top it off the tee.
Because everybody's expecting.
Not a solid swing thought. So I take a deep breath, big swing, and I ripped it down the pipe, and I look back at the starter. Only thing he says to me, don't hit it into Mr. Palmer. Only thing he says to me, not good shot, not anything else. And there's no such thing as the ladies' tees. They're called the forward tees. And I know some guys who should be moving on up.
I know. And, choosing the tee box we're going to play on is something that you should take carefully, because so many people are like, no, I want to play from the blues. And when you're sometimes you just get older and you just got to take a step forward so you have more fun. And if
it will be more fun, Max, it'll be more fun from the right set of tee box. You nailed it.
I know. My dad is 66 and he's been hitting the ball very long all his life. And right now, for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been hitting the ball longer than him. And he's like, all right, maybe I got to move forward. Maybe, and he's thinking about it. And it's just normal. It's just that thing about having fun always.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. I get so many questions. So many people have the same question. What's the secret for hitting it so long? And do you have a different swing for a normal drive or a long drive swing?
All excellent questions. So first of all, equipment-wise, a standard gentleman's driver is typically around 45 inches. USGA, RNA, Golf Canada, they allow up to 48 inches. So first of all, you'll see a lot of long drivers with longer shafts. Longer shafts create more club head speed, but harder to get straight. So I have a 47 and a quarter, 47 and a half inch driver. I actually use that as my play driver because I've swung tens of thousands of times with it, but it is harder to hit straight. So there's that. As for swing, the biggest key for all of your viewers who want to hit it longer, you need to create good turn, as much turn as humanly possible. And I find 80% of women can't hit it over 200 yards. Why? Women tend to be arms lifters versus turners. And my men, they'll turn, but can you turn more? Can you turn more? I find men have more turn in them, but they just don't realize that they can. And the more you turn, that's more coil and torque, and that will lead to distance. So here's a great swing thought for your viewers. So when you're setting up, and you're about to make your initiate your backswing, so many players initiate their backswing with their hands or their wrists. These are lead shoulder. Initiate the backswing with your lead shoulder. It will force you to turn. You can't help but turn. So that's a great tip. That's tip number 1, create coil and torque. And then tip number 2, you've got to start the downswing with your lower body. So where a lot of people, especially men, actually lose their distance because men tend to be stronger in their shoulders, back, and arm area. So what my men will do, they'll get to the top of their backswing, and their first move in their downswing will be that back shoulder.
They're not moving with the rest of the body. Yeah.
No. So you want to think of, here's a great swing thought. You want to think, turn your shirt in your backswing, turn your pants in your downswing. Turn your shirt in your backswing, turn your pants in your downswing. So when you get to the top of your backswing, your first move in your downswing should be turn your lead foot, turn your lead pocket, turn your guts. That's my favorite. Turn your guts. And that should be the first part that turns you down. And here's another great swing thought. Let's stop thinking swing harder. You know, when you get to men's long drive or ladies' long drive, the first thing people want to do is swing harder, swing out of their shoes.
Oh, speed doesn't come from your arms. It comes from the rest of the body.
Exactly. So here's your new swing thought. Instead of swing harder, I want your viewers to think turn harder, not swing harder. Turn harder, not swing harder. So the speed needs to come from the guts, or like that the lower body using the ground, the big muscles, your legs, your glutes, right? From there, not these tiny little muscles, your arms, right?
And I was watching your Instagram. One thing that you teach the ladies is to take care of the girls when they're swinging. And I saw on Instagram, have you really heard someone say that you need to go one arm under and one arm?
I am not. I'm not even kidding. And I won't name names, but I watched. It was actually a professional golfer.
Really?
It was that taught. Oh yeah, you go one on top, one underneath. I watched this, and I'm like, what?
Because you got to figure out what to do in the swing.
And so women, one of their biggest complaints is like, Lisa, what do I do? Is it above the girls? Is it below the girls? Like, where do I put my arms, right? But the problem is, because women are arms lifters, they bump into the girls all day long. So when I teach women that if they start their turn with their lead shoulder, this is what I tell them. I'm like, okay, girls, here's the magic. You know, if you lift, you're going to bump into those bad boys all day long, even if you're an A cup. But if you turn, so if you start with that lead shoulder, here's the magic. Look, the girls come with you. The girls come with you. The girls come with you. So if women start turning, it's going to stop the interruption of the girls. But basically the key with the girls is they just want to have the arms hang naturally. It's not above, because look how my shoulders get so close to my ears, and now it restricts my backswing. It's not underneath. That's just a push-up bra. It's definitely not one on top, one underneath. But it's but again, arms hang naturally. And then if you turn, the girls will come with you.
Thank you so much for that tip. Every ladies in the comments are like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. Lisa, thank you so much for your time this morning. Just if you want to follow you on social, on Instagram, Lisa Longball, Facebook, Lisa Longball.
Yes.
And if people want to reach out to you to go to your golf school, where should they go?
Oh, I have a website, www.lisalongball.com, and I've got a golf school tab right there. So any questions, I've got all my contact information on the website. I'm happy to answer any questions about the golf schools. And then I do a full day golf school in Toronto and full days in Calgary. I'm hoping to I'm working with Nadia, hopefully to come to Quebec to do some schools in Quebec as well, because I would love it.
Let me tell you one thing. If you come to Quebec, it's going to be packed here. And people, the common thread is people love you on the Michelle. Very nice discovery. Michelle Pratt says she's funny. She's fun. Julie Latourette, I love Lisa. My revelation this time. So thank you so much. LisaLongball.com. Thank you for being on the show this morning. I had a blast. I really, really had a blast. And when you come to Quebec, we play together so you can overdrive me by 50.
Okay, but I bet you have a good short game. So.
Yeah, well, I'll play from the Reds. I'll take the Reds that time.
Max, thank you for having me. And to all your viewers, I hope your courses are opening soon. And I hope you all stay safe and have a wonderful season once those courses open.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
C'était Lisa Longball en direct de Calgary. C'est levé à 7 h ce matin quand même, Lisa, pour nous rejoindre. Je pense que c'est un personnage contagieux de golf. C'est le fun d'avoir parlé de golf, un sourire tellement cool. C'est le fun, c'est ça qu'on veut. C'est ça qu'on veut dans le monde du golf. Maintenant, il est temps de vous présenter notre prochain invité. Je suis content d'avoir sur le show parce que c'est un nom que vous allez entendre pendant plusieurs années dans le golf. C'est un nom qui va résonner fort et longtemps et c'est un nom du Québec. Et je suis content de la rejoindre ce matin, habillée avec sa casquette de Team Canada, mesdames, messieurs, de Rosemère au Québec, Brigitte Thibault. Salut Brigitte!
Allô, comment ça va?
Ça va super bien, toi?
Bien.
Merci d'être là ce matin. Merci de prendre du temps. Je vais faire les présentations comme il faut pour les gens qui te vois pour la première fois ce matin. Tu es la seule Canadienne qui était dans le field de 72 golfeurs pour la première fois au Augusta National Women's Amateur en 2019. En 2019, tu as gagné le Mountain West Conference Championship solo. Tu viens d'être sélectionné sur la première équipe d'étoiles avec ton université Fresno State pour All Mountain West NCAA. Ça va très bien pour toi dans le monde du golf présentement?
Ouais, j'ai eu une bonne saison, puis c'est le fun de voir les efforts qui apparaissent en compétition.
Oui, absolument, parce que tu es très jeune, tu es quand même, ta troisième année d'université, mais tu joues au golf depuis que tu as 15 ans, donc ça fait pas tant d'années que ça. La progression a été super vite. Parle-moi un peu de tes années d'université. Comment tu as vécu la compétition à NCAA?
En fait, ce qui me manquait pour moi, je pense, c'était de la compétition. Donc, quand j'ai commencé, il me manquait beaucoup d'expérience envers la compétition, envers le golf, parce que c'est vraiment différent des sports que j'ai fait avant. Le cheerleading, c'est de la façon que ça ressort, c'est vraiment différent par rapport au golf. Tu peux utiliser ton énergie. Au golf, c'est plus de contrôler les émotions, puis quoi que ce soit qui se passe dans ta tête. Comme ça, NCAA m'a vraiment apporté beaucoup d'expérience, mais aussi plus de pouvoir me comparer avec beaucoup des meilleures joueuses dans le monde amateur. Puis je pense que juste à partir de là, ça m'a juste primé pour vouloir en faire plus.
Tu l'as dit, tu as commencé à cause d'une blessure au cheerleading qui t'a amené vers le golf. Tu as passé dans le système de Golf Québec, qui est une super belle plateforme, les tournois juniors chez Golf Québec, pour justement toucher à la compétition un peu. Puis je regardais ta feuille de route, tu es passé de faire des tournois au Blainvilliers à marcher les allées d'Augusta. Quand tu regardes en arrière, le parcours est incroyable à l'âge que tu as. Tu as beaucoup de bagages de golf déjà.
Oui, beaucoup de monde me dit ça, mais pour moi, je le vois plus comme j'essaie vraiment d'être ma meilleure personne à chaque jour. Puis on dirait que c'est le fait de m'avoir vraiment concentrée sur moi-même par rapport à ces années-là que ça m'a vraiment permis de progresser de la façon que je voulais. Puis j'ai tellement des buts qui sont beaucoup plus hauts que ce que je fais en ce moment que c'est comme si j'ai jamais vraiment le temps de m'asseoir sur ce que je fais. J'apprécie beaucoup, puis je suis très reconnaissante de tout ça, mais je veux dire, je continue à travailler fort.
Mais parlons-en justement de ces buts-là. Qu'est-ce qu'elle veut, Brigitte Thibault, dans les prochaines années? C'est quoi tes visées? Évidemment, j'imagine que tu vas me répondre la LPGA, mais tu as quoi en tête pour y arriver dans les prochaines années?
Je crois que c'est juste de faire confiance à mes statistiques, de juste continuer à progresser sur les choses que je dois m'améliorer, puis juste de passer beaucoup de temps sur les petits détails, comment on approche la ronde. Il y a beaucoup de petits détails avant que j'ai beaucoup plus travaillé dans les dernières années, qui est sur l'approche de juste les compétitions, mais aussi les rondes de pratique, de la façon que tu vois les choses mentalement. Il y a beaucoup d'aspects que tu peux travailler, mais je crois que juste d'obtenir ma carte, si je connais bien mes statistiques, ben mes statistiques vont arriver si je fais juste confiance à moi-même et à mes statistiques. Donc, je n'aurai pas de surprise de le faire ou non. C'est sûr que je vais le savoir au moment que je vais être là. Si j'ai vraiment beaucoup de chance de le faire, si je vais être borderline, il n'y aura pas vraiment de surprise. C'est plus de travailler fort puis de faire confiance à ma game.
Oui, absolument. Il y a René Fort qui a une très bonne question. Si Brigitte avait des conseils à donner aux juniors de Golf Québec qui veulent évoluer sur le circuit de la NCAA, quels seraient-ils?
Je conseillerais de faire, oui, des tournois Golf Québec, mais aussi, exemple, moi, j'aimais beaucoup faire l'optimiste, qui donnait l'expérience d'avoir accès aux personnes des États-Unis. Aussi d'envoyer des vidéos à plein d'écoles que tu aimerais aller. Juste de te faire connaître. Moi, j'ai eu la chance de... mon nom, au début, personne ne me connaissait, puis ils te regardent vraiment comme 2-3 années avant même de te recruter. Donc, je crois de juste lancer ton nom là-bas, de leur montrer que je suis ici, puis je suis ici pour rester veux pas, puis de continuer à travailler fort, puis d'avoir tes buts vraiment écrits, puis savoir vraiment ce que tu travailles vers. Puis je crois que si tu sais vers où tu t'en vas, mais c'est dur de se perdre.
Parce que c'est une grosse bébite, la NCAA. Il y a beaucoup d'équipes. Il y a Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. Il y a beaucoup de conférences. Comment ça s'est passé pour toi? Tu as choisi Fresno State. Évidemment que la Californie, c'est un peu plus intéressant que le Minnesota. Est-ce que tu avais plusieurs choix, mettons, dans la balance? Comment ça s'est passé ton arrivée à Fresno State?
En fait, comme je l'ai dit, étant donné que j'ai commencé tard, mon nom n'était pas vraiment sorti
Ouais.
là-bas. Puis j'ai eu la chance de me qualifier pour le CP à 17 ans, à ma deuxième année de golf, le Canadian Open. Fait
Ouais.
que mon nom est sorti. Puis ça l'a permis de aussi me faire connaître là-dessus, mais j'ai envoyé beaucoup de vidéos, de lettres. Mon coach Martin Whelan, il a envoyé, il a rejoint beaucoup d'universités. Moi, je me rappelle, j'ai eu une première offre, c'était en Floride, puis
Wow.
mes parents, ils étaient comme, ils savaient pas trop si j'allais en avoir d'autres, parce que c'était ma première. Puis,
Avec Florida State?
non,
OK.
c'était University of Florida. USF, ouais.
OK. South Florida. Yeah.
Ouais, puis j'étais allée, puis c'était une très belle université, mais on dirait qu'il manquait quelque chose. Puis j'ai toujours été une fan de la Californie, puis je savais que je voulais aller là pour pas avoir à être restreint par la météo s'il pleuvait beaucoup.
Ouais.
Mais étant donné que j'avais commencé plus tard, je voulais pas vraiment me restreindre dans des conditions que je pouvais peut-être contrôler un peu plus par une décision. Donc, quand j'ai visité Fresno State, j'ai tout de suite cliqué avec ma coach. Pour moi, j'avais 3 choses. Il y avait ma coach, il y avait la température, puis juste de savoir que l'environnement n'allait pas me ralentir dans les choses que j'allais aller. En fait, ça ne me dérangeait pas d'aller à une des plus grosses universités ou une moins bonne université. C'était pas vraiment ça. C'était juste le fait de jouer première joueuse. Si je suis en Californie, donc je peux quand même me battre contre puis compétitionner contre les meilleurs, South Carolina ou Arizona State ou University of Arizona. Il y a beaucoup d'universités que j'avais accès. Donc, si je jouais première joueur, j'avais quand même l'expérience de jouer contre eux.
Parce que pour que les gens comprennent bien, sur une équipe de golf dans la NCAA, il y a des joueurs réguliers qui jouent tous les tournois. Il y a des joueurs comme qui font les pratiques et qui embarquent si jamais. Comment ça fonctionne? Vous êtes combien, mettons, sur l'équipe de golf féminine?
On est 8,
OK.
mais il y a un line-up de 5 personnes qui voyagent. Puis des fois, ils vont un individuel juste pour la faire pratiquer, mais elle compte pas dans le tournoi, mais elle peut quand même gagner ou quelque chose comme ça. Son pointage par rapport à l'équipe ne va pas compter.
Il y a dans ta feuille de route de quoi de très impressionnant, les Pan Am Games, la médaille de bronze, c'était à Lima, au Pérou, je crois. Parle-moi de l'expérience de ce golf-là en équipe, parce que c'est différent là, un peu.
Ouais, c'était vraiment le fun parce que tu vois vraiment qu'il y a le travail d'équipe là-bas. Oui, c'est individuel, mais aussi de vraiment rentrer dans. C'est comme l'universel des Olympiques, mais un peu plus petit.
Ouais.
Puis c'est la chose qui va se rapprocher le plus aux Olympiques. Donc, c'était le fun de pouvoir l'expérimenter avec Team Canada. Puis, juste avoir c'était une semaine incroyable que tu rencontres des personnes merveilleuses, mais aussi tu apprends à travailler en équipe, surtout le Canada. Moi, ma première journée n'était pas bonne, mais Mary a pris soin de notre équipe.
Wow.
Tandis que le contraire, du côté des gars, c'était pareil entre Joey et Austin. Puis les autres jours, moi, j'ai repris Mary, puis on s'est bien supporté là-dedans.
Tu en parlais tantôt du côté mental du golf. Bon, évidemment, tu as été sélectionné sur l'équipe canadienne encore cette année. Il y a des noms du golf qu'on connaît bien. Tu en as parlé tantôt, Noémie Paré également. Présentement, dans la période où on vit pour la compétitrice en toi, pour la fille qui est habituée de compete, de faire des tournois, comment tu fais pour rester focus, pour te préparer à quand ça va revenir, vu que ça s'est terminé comme un peu abruptement?
Oui, en fait, on était supposé de voler au Mexique. Puis c'est toujours un moment de l'année que je recherche bien parce qu'on finit en Arizona, on va au Mexique, on a une semaine, puis après c'est Augusta. Fait que c'est un bon momentum à grandir, mais je veux dire, tout le monde le vit en ce moment, donc c'est dur de m'appuyer sur mon sort à moi. Fait que moi, je l'ai vu vraiment d'une pensée positive, de juste voir les choses, tout le monde vit ce moment-là, donc c'est qui va s'en occuper le plus et le meilleur par rapport à eux-mêmes et leur but. Donc, moi, je sais c'est quoi mon but. Puis, le fait que je me sens le plus productive puis contente à l'intérieur de moi, c'est de garder la même routine puis d'être sur un horaire. Donc, je me suis créé un horaire complète. Puis, je suis complètement revenue sur l'horaire que j'étais en Californie. C'est juste que je ne compétitionne pas. Donc, c'est comme un peu une session d'été ou une session d'hiver un peu plus que tu pratiques ton swing. Mais je veux dire, je suis restée sur le même horaire je me réveille à 4h50, je m'entraîne au gym avec mon trainer sur FaceTime. Après, je m'en vais travailler. Après ça, je dîne, puis après, je pratique. Puis, ça recommence comme en Californie.
Parce que c'est la préparation physique c'est une grande partie aujourd'hui des succès au golf. Puis si on te suit sur Instagram, on peut voir que c'est de bonheur au gym en Californie, de bonheur au gym à la maison aussi. Ça, c'est un truc que tu vas devoir conserver, évidemment, pour rester on top. Mais je pense que les gens le comprennent de plus en plus, surtout versus le golf professionnel, de l'importance aujourd'hui des jeunes athlètes de passer du temps au gym. Puis en te suivant, on constate qu'il existe des entraînements spécifiques pour le golf.
Oui, exactement. Puis en fait, il y a beaucoup de. Je sépare mon training en comme 3 parties parce que je veux être sûre de conserver ma carrière au plus long que je peux. Puis c'est les efforts en ce moment qui vont vraiment ressortir dans 6-7 ans. Donc, c'est juste le fait de conserver mes blessures, pas de blessures, de faire attention, de vraiment bien s'étirer. C'est sûr, j'ai toujours la section cardio. Après, j'ai la section d'étirement, puis de juste renforcer les muscles, puis de changer ma posture. Puis il y a toujours la 3e section que je traite mon corps exactement comme si j'étais blessée. Donc, je vais aller me faire, exemple, à l'université, dans un spa de chaud, après congelé, après des machines pour juste être sûr que les muscles recouvrent bien de leur entraînement.
Que ça soit optimal, évidemment, tout le temps. J'ai une super bonne question ici de Sylvain et c'est mythique pour nous tous, Augusta, quand on regarde le Masters à la télé, tu l'as joué, tu l'as marché, t'as passé sur Magnolia Lane. Il se passe quoi dans ton corps quand tu mets les pieds à Augusta? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Ça pique, il fait chaud. C'est quoi le feeling d'arriver à Augusta?
C'est vraiment dur à expliquer parce que tout le monde me demande la question, puis tout ce que je peux dire, c'est que c'était parfait, mais ça a été vraiment plaisant de pouvoir le vivre sans les personnes pendant la ronde de pratique, puis le vivre avec toutes les personnes qui étaient là pendant la ronde finale. Parce que quand une personne est là, c'est tellement... C'est dur à expliquer. C'est tellement saine, puis juste tellement calme du fait qu'il n'y a personne. Tu sais, il y a des bruits d'oiseaux, tout est parfait. C'est vrai, c'est juste comme calme. On dirait que tu fais de la méditation pendant 5 heures. Mais c'est incroyable. Puis quand tout le monde est là, le rush, l'énergie qu'il y a en toi, c'est impossible de pas être au bout de tes pieds.
Et est-ce que Eamon's Corner, en vrai, est aussi beau qu'à la télé?
Oui. Oui. Le trou numéro 13, là, les fleurs, là, c'est vraiment incroyable. Puis aussi le trou numéro 12, là, c'est juste... c'est des choses qui sont dures à oublier, puis que tu essaies de vraiment capturer l'image pour la mémoire parce que c'est vraiment trop beau pour être vrai.
Absolument. Brigitte, si on veut te suivre sur Instagram, c'est bri.tib. Dans les prochaines semaines, mois, il y a beaucoup d'entraînement, mais il s'en vient quoi pour toi, sinon, à court moyen terme?
Court moyen terme, c'est encore de l'entraînement, puis juste de travailler sur les petites choses que d'habitude, j'aurais pas nécessairement le temps de faire. Mais sinon, je veux dire, on fait qu'est-ce qu'on a, puis on a hâte que le golf revienne, puis que les compétitions reviennent.
Oui, absolument.
J'espère juste que le monde reste à la maison, puis essaie d'améliorer la situation le plus possible.
Oui, absolument. Brigitte Thibault, merci tellement d'avoir pris du temps. On te souhaite le meilleur. On te suit. On sait très, très bien que dans pas long, on va te regarder à la télé gagner des tournois, puis on a très, très hâte.
Merci beaucoup. Merci d'avoir pris le temps pour moi, puis on va se parler bientôt.
Ça fait plaisir. Salut à tout le monde. Salut Brigitte.
Bye.
Bye. Brigitte Thibault, bri.tib sur les médias sociaux. Tellement content de pouvoir la recevoir aujourd'hui. C'est le fun parce que dans le système de Golf Québec et dans le système de Golf Canada sont passés de très, très bons golfeurs. Puis c'est important de les mettre en lumière. Et moi, je vais toujours le dire, les parents qui ont des jeunes enfants qui veulent faire des sports de compétition, oui, on veut que les enfants performent, mais on veut aussi les voir évoluer dans un sport qui va leur apporter de bonnes valeurs. Et le golf, c'est ça. Le golf, c'est d'apprendre le respect, d'apprendre la patience, d'être dehors, de faire de l'activité physique. C'est une belle communauté, le golf. Et le système de tournoi de Golf Québec est tellement bien encadré, tellement bien fait que vos jeunes ne vont qu'apprendre là-dedans. Et peut-être, si ça les intéresse, et peut-être s'ils ont cette chance-là de compétitionner à de plus haut niveau, avoir ce bagage-là, un peu comme Brigitte l'a fait, de se promener un peu partout aux États-Unis, un peu partout dans le monde pour aller gagner et aller compétitionner sur des terrains qui sont incroyables. Et Brigitte, l'an passé, elle a gagné en 2019 le All Mountain West parce que, bon, la NCAA, il y a plusieurs divisions. Il y a division 1, 2, 3. Et là, dans les divisions, il y a des conférences partout aux États-Unis parce qu'il y a tellement d'écoles. Et elle a gagné le tournoi individuel du All Mountain West Conference où il y a les universités de Las Vegas, quelques universités en Californie. Donc, c'est un fait d'armes exceptionnel. Et déjà, à l'âge qu'elle a, d'avoir cette feuille de route-là, c'est incroyable. On parle beaucoup de Brooke Anderson présentement, de Céleste Dao. On a plusieurs grands noms du golf. Il faut en parler, il faut faire rayonner ces jeunes golfeurs-là. Il faut s'assurer, justement, de les mettre dans l'actualité le plus souvent possible pour qu'on parle de golf. Maintenant, que je suis content de vous présenter mon prochain invité. On a fait cette entrevue-là hier avec Mike Weir, qui est notre prochain invité. Mike nous a généreusement donné 15 minutes en direct sa maison à Utah. Et évidemment, au décalage horaire faisait que le gars a le droit de dormir le samedi matin. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle on lui a parlé hier après-midi. C'est important de l'avoir sur le show parce que Mike, si ce n'est pas le plus grand nom du golf au Canada, il est assurément dans le top 3, le seul Canadien à avoir gagné le Masters en 2003. Il va entrer dans une période cruciale de sa carrière parce qu'il aura 50 ans le 12 mai prochain. Je sais que la vie va vite, mais ça fait déjà 17 ans que Mike Weir a gagné le Masters et là, il commence un nouveau chapitre de sa carrière. On voulait lui parler. Alors, c'est avec grand plaisir ce matin qu'on est en mesure de vous présenter cette entrevue-là de Mike Weir qui nous rejoint en direct de son domicile du Utah.
So we have the great pleasure this morning to have on the show
Puis là, il y a-tu du son?
in the off season while we're waiting to play golf.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. It's kind of spring, and I was going through the garage, and no one. I'm the only one in my family that's left-handed, so I don't get to hand any of my clubs to my brothers or my dad or anything. So I end up accumulating a lot of stuff. So I thought I'd give away some of it this spring.
Yes, and there's a lot of left-handed players in Quebec, and a lot of people relate to you. And you like, that you love, they're going to push back the Masters, and then that you know a lot about because you've won the Masters in 2003. It's been 17 years already. Life goes fast. and they're going to be playing the Masters in November, probably with no fans. We'll see until what will it change, you think, about that tournament being played in November and not in the Masters we know?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing would be if there are no fans or limited fans. I think the golf course will play very similar. They can manipulate the golf course. They have the sub-air system and everything they can. The weather might be a bit of a change. They say it could be a little bit cooler in November, so you could get some stronger winds. But the golf course, I think, it'd be nice to see it play very firm. I mean, the last year was about as soft, and you never wanted to call Augusta Green slow, but they weren't. They didn't have the real fire to them last year.
Yeah.
They normally have. So maybe in November with the cooler temperatures, they can really get them firm and fast.
And if we look at the schedule, the Ryder Cup is going to be played before Whistling Straits. You've competed in so many President's Cup. You know about these kind of tournaments. It's basically team golf. So the fan factor at the Ryder Cup, at the President Cup, is major. How do you approach a tournament of that kind with no fans, since you need them to get the crowd going and get the golfers going?
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see if they end up playing the Ryder Cup without the fans. There's such an integral part of the fabric of that event, and you can have such a home country advantage when you're playing at home.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it'll be quite different. The atmosphere will be quite different. It'll still be competition. The guys will still fight hard to try to win their points, but without the fans, it loses some of its luster, because that's where you really see the pressure, and guys having to make putts with, the crowds jeering and cheering and maybe booing and all the things. Some of those 4 and 5 foot putts are a lot harder than when there's no fans. So, I don't think it'll have quite the intensity that, they'll try to do the best job they can for TV, but it definitely won't have the intensity as what normally.
Right now, we're looking at the calendar. It's going to be different this year, and you're in the next couple of days going to turn 50. So, first question: when is the party? Who's invited? And second part of the question: you're about to enter the Champions Tour. So it's a new chapter in your career. How do you approach that new chapter?
Well, the first part, we were planning on having a big party, but with the social distancing, no, we're not. That's not going to happen. Maybe later in the summer when things loosen up a little bit. But I was really looking forward to kicking off. My first event was going to be the senior PGA up in Michigan. It was going to be my first event at the end of May, and that's now pushed back. We don't know exactly when the Champions Tour is going to start. We're hoping to hear something next week when the Champions Tour will officially begin. It's looking like late July. So it's a bit of a bummer, but that we've had to push everything back. But of course, we got to take care of everybody. We got to keep everybody healthy, and I'll get started when we get started. But I'm definitely looking forward to playing with players that I grew up, playing with. I played a lot of practice rounds with Fred Couples and Mark O'Meara, and these are the guys when I got on the PGA Tour I looked up to and played with and played a lot with. So, to get back with those guys is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's like a big party. It's a chance for you guys to still play golf pro and to compete at that age, and not saying that you're old or anything, but I was always thinking about the Champions Tour, like if the NHL had a league for 50-plus players that you could see still Ronick and those kind of guys play. It's exciting for the fans still, and to go back to play with those guys, for you couples, you named O'Meara, you guys are still wanting to compete even after all those years.
Oh, no doubt. The competitive juice are flowing, and for myself in particular, my injury in 2010, cut a lot of my career short, and so now that I'm feeling good, and now I'm back, and I'm really looking forward to kind of making up for lost time a bit, to get back there and really compete and get going again.
And you played a couple of events on the Corn Ferry, and you're going back, I think, in the next following week in the Corn Ferry to get prepared to the Champions Tour. What's the atmosphere right now on this tour, knowing that some of the guys, they won't get their card to get to the big tour because of what's happening right now?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough for the PGA Tour to see what they're putting together for these young guys to get their cards for the following season. And there's only obviously so many playing opportunities for these guys, whether they try to expand some of the fields, early in the year, some of the fields are only 132 players. Maybe they'll try to extend it to 144. But with daylight being, an issue and stuff early in the year, that's a bit of a problem. But, they'll figure something out. There's some smart people out there at the tour, and they'll figure out a way to, create some playing opportunities for the guys. And but it's a tough year for the young guys that are trying to get out there, and get through the Corn Ferry Tour to get on the PGA Tour. It's a tough one for them this year.
Yeah, and so many young golfers are doing so well right now, and they were looking up to get their spot on the PGA Tour. Do you still, when you play with those players, or either it's Corn Ferry or either it's PGA Tour, do you still get impressed by all the newcomers, all the new young kids being that young and that successful or powerful on the ball at their age?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's fun for me to, play. The last event I played in Florida, I had a good chance. I was in contention to win there, and that was fun to get in there. But to play with these young guys, that to see the power, to see the evolution of the game. When I turned pro right out of college, there wasn't too many players that made their mark on the PGA Tour right out of college. There was Phil Mickelson and David Duval and Justin Leonard that did well right out of college. But the rest of us had to play mini tours and work our way and get experience. These young kids now come right on the tour and they're ready to go. The Victor Hovlands and Matthew Wolfs and Colin Morikawas and these guys that, 20, 21 years old, they're ready to win. Their games are mature. And that just speaks to the evolution of the game. The technique of the game, the teaching, the coaching, everything combined, better athletes is the way it is now. So they're better prepared at a younger age now.
Yes, and they put more time on physical preparation than maybe some of the guys did back in the days, and that's why they have an advantage on distance or anything on the field.
Yeah, the distance is huge. I mean, there used to be, in my era, coming out, there was a few long guys, really long guys that hit it far. And sometimes they were pretty crooked. Now these guys are really long and they hit it pretty darn straight. I mean, really straight. Some of them, the top players in the world, McIlroy and Dustin Johnson and Koepka, these guys drive the ball straight and really long. So, and there's a bunch of those guys on the Corn Ferry Tour coming up. So that's just the way the game is now. It's such a power game, and we know how to work those aspects to incorporate that into your swing to make yourself more powerful and use the power properly. So, that's just the way the game is. It's fun to watch the guys hit it that far.
Because distance on the tour has always been an issue. And I was reading Golf Digest this week, and Nick Faldo was coming up with an idea to ban the tee on the deck for players to kick off their for me, it was a funny way of trying to take off distance for the guys. Because even if you put courses at 8,200 yards, they're still going to go in par 5 with a wedge probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guys, I guess that, the debate is, we have all these great golf courses in North America that, that you can hold some great championships on. And, the whole design to dog leg, you hit it to the corner and the whole dog legs. Well, guys hit it so far, they just hit it over and just hit a little flip into all these holes. And that's not the way these great golf courses were designed to be played and to challenge the players. And, that's a real issue because obviously we don't want to keep extending golf courses. That's a lot more money, a lot more maintenance. So there's a number of things. So there's got to be a way. And they started that process, the R&A and USGA and PGA Tour. They're all trying to figure it out. So hopefully they'll come up with something here.
Yeah, probably. And Mike, before I let you go, anything you'd like to say to the golf fans in Quebec that are going to be watching you this season or watching golf this season or playing golf this season?
Well, yeah, Quebec's always been, from my first time playing Quebec, the Ontario Junior Ontario Quebec matches when I was about 14, playing in Quebec City was my first time playing Quebec, and I've been there a number of times now. Of course, Canadian Opens and President's Cups, and the fans have always been fantastic. So, I look forward to getting back up to Laval. I love getting up there whenever I can to go play, playing Royal Montreal and the great courses in the area. So hopefully I'll be back up there soon, and hopefully the fans of Quebec, golf fans of Quebec, follow me on the Champions Tour.
Yes, we will for sure, and we got a great campaign called Sortez Golfer in French. I don't know how good your French is, but the campaign Sortez Golfer basically in English is get out, play golf, and it's made to take people out on the course and make them love the game, and it's especially based on bring a friend to the course or make a friend watch a tournament on TV, and it's working pretty well right now. Because we got so many good Canadian ambassadors such as yourself, Adam Adwin, Brooke, because golf in Canada is doing great right now.
It is, and that's a great initiative. I think, once people get involved in the game and learn to love the game, and, it's a game for a lifetime. If you can take it up, you can play it forever. There's a guy at my home club, 97, out there playing. It's a game that you can play and try to improve. I'm trying to help my dad, who's 82, always trying to help him with his chipping or putting, and just a great game that you can play with your family or your buddies. So yeah, if you can bring a friend out to play and introduce them to the game, that's a great initiative.
Mike Weir, thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it a lot. Good luck out there this season. We all wish you the best.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.
You too.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'était Mike Weir. Désolé du... On va fermer la vidéo ici. Et voilà. Désolé des problèmes techniques. Je sais qu'on a eu des petits problèmes de son au début et on s'en excuse. Vous savez comment c'est, la technologie. Ou comme dit mon grand-père, c'est mon petite machine du diable là. Il est arrivé un petit problème dans les 2-3 premières minutes, mais on va régler ça. On va vous remettre la vidéo au complet de l'entrevue avec Mike, avec le son au complet, à part du show de ce matin. Vous allez pouvoir le réécouter. Vous avez manqué à peu près les 2-3 premières minutes et on en est vraiment désolé. Mais on va remettre ça tantôt. Assurément, sur toutes les pages sur lesquelles vous nous écoutez présentement, vous allez pouvoir les réécouter au complet, l'entrevue de Mike. Et oui, salutations à tous les gauchers du Québec, parce qu'il y a du gaucher au pouce carré dans la belle province. Merci d'avoir été là, tout le monde. Il y a plusieurs personnes qui se sont connectées encore aujourd'hui. Merci à Nadia, son accueil ici au Centre de golf Le Versant. On est chanceux de pouvoir être dans un environnement golf, d'en jaser le temps qu'on ait le droit de jouer. Je sais que vous êtes impatients, je sais que vous avez les fourmis dans les jambes, je sais que vous avez lavé vos bâtons, que vous frappez dans vos courses sur des bâches bleues et des toiles de piscine, que vous avez hâte d'aller jouer sur la vraie affaire, sur le vrai terrain, mais ça s'en vient. Et quand on va le faire, dites-vous qu'on va avoir une très, très belle saison 2020. Merci à la table de concertation de l'industrie du golf pour cette initiative-là, de ce show-là, en espérant que vous avez passé un bon dimanche matin. Merci d'avoir pris une tasse de thé avec nous autres. Merci d'avoir pris votre tasse de café avec nous autres. Et on va se retrouver samedi prochain pour un autre show. En attendant, partagez les shows de cette semaine, mettez ça sur vos pages Facebook, allez écouter sur Spotify la version audio, la version podcast et parlez de golf. Dites au monde que vous aimez ça, dites-leur que c'est le plus beau sport au monde, amenez un ami jouer au golf, préparez-vous à la saison, on a tous très très hâte et on a hâte de vous revoir samedi prochain. On va pouvoir aller sortir golfer ensemble. Sortez golfer, le hashtag évidemment que vous voyez dans mon sac en arrière. Merci à Pierre, merci à Denis, Justin Desrochers, merci les gars, merci d'être là. Si jamais vous voulez voir du contenu golf, évidemment, sur la page Sortez golfer, sinon sur mon Instagram, Max Lalonde. Fait que bon dimanche, profitez du soleil. Je sais pas vous êtes où au Québec, vous nous écoutez de où, mais ici, le soleil sort, parce que vous le savez, il mouille jamais au golf. Et il fait super beau. Fait qu'on vous souhaite une belle fin de journée. On se retrouve un peu plus tard cette semaine. Salut!